Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Deadology Podcast. From Pencil Hill Studio, New Paltz, New York. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. Today is January 29th, 2024. This is Season 2, Episode 5 of the Deadology Podcast. And today we're going to take a look at a colossal Grateful Dead show, July 18th. 1972, Roosevelt Stadium, Jersey City. A three-set show, definitely one of the more famous Grateful Dead shows out there. And the reason I chose today to look at this 72 show, twofold. We've yet to do a 1972 or 1974 show on the podcast. And I was looking at the two great Roosevelt Stadium shows from each year, and decided to go with the 72 one because the 50th anniversary of the 1974 show will be coming up this year, and I'll get to that show on the anniversary date there. And the other reason is February, we're going Jerry Garcia Band. A few years back, I decreed that February was Jerry Garcia Band month, and here on the podcast, we're going to take a look at least one Jerry Garcia Band show on every week through the month of February. We'll get some other stuff in there, some Dead, the album of the week stuff, but it's going to be a Jerry Garcia Band month. I'm looking forward to that. And I said one big show from the Grateful Dead before we head into February, and I couldn't pick a much larger one than this. All the cool cats were in Jersey City on July 18th, 1972. Bob Dylan was there. David Bromberg was there. Neither one of them performed. They were just there checking it out like most of the Deadheads. My friend Barry Aquilino was there as well. And we're going to have a quick chat with him since he's an eyewitness to essential Grateful Dead history. And before we go to the little chat with Barry, I wanted to tell you how I met Barry. It's a Grateful Dead story. Pretty awesome. It changed my life. We're at the website I met him at. It all began in the summer of 1999, 90th Street and 1st Avenue, Manhattan, Upper East Side. I walk into the Australia bar, and there's a guy on stage, long hair, in a ponytail, tattoos. He's playing Grateful Dead songs. I was like, I got to meet this guy. He wasn't the official performer. He was just up there, messing around with an acoustic guitar, singing for a few people. I joined him on stage. I remember the songs we did. It was one of the most memorable nights, man. We sang Cold Rain and Snow and Bid You Good Night together. There might have been one person left at the bar. But what happened after was amazing. The guy's name is Jim Kerr Jr. His dad is the famous New York radio DJ Jim Kerr. And Jim Kerr Jr., Deadhead, really got into them in the 90s. A guy totally loves the Grateful Dead. He told me that you could, on a computer, you could download Grateful Dead discs. So what happened was the next day I went out and I bought my first personal computer, bought blank discs, and started downloading the Grateful Dead. That was all I needed to hear. To go out and get my first computer, that you could download Dead shows on the internet. The second big thing that he told me was, he's like, you got to join the Morning Dew website. Morning Dew website was a website based on the radio show called Morning Dew on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. Every week they played Grateful Dead shows. The host was Lance Neal. And David Rothstein created a website where fans could get together and discuss the Grateful Dead. I signed up there, man, and what a bunch of beautiful lunatics were on this site. And I'm proud to say I was one of them. We just debated, and every year, every song, best versions. We had so much passion. We were exchanging CDs. If somebody came on there and said, this is the best Jack Straw ever, and it wasn't, they would get killed. It was like, there was no messing around, man. Everybody came with their opinions, full blast, and just such passionate Grateful Dead and sharing of music. And despite all the arguments we had online, met so many cool people, friends to them. Many of these guys to this day, even though the site no longer exists, as far as I know. And another great thing that came out of it, and then we'll get to the chat with Barry, was these guys, like they would see all the energy I was putting into my stories. They would say, "You got to write a book." So I took them seriously. I went back to college, got a master's degree in creative writing, and here I am, 11 books later, 11 published books out there, and it all began with the Morning Dew website. Great people, and one of the guys on there, Barry, he was on there as much as I was. Man, it was like we were posting every day on that website 10 times a day. But Barry was one of the most loved guys on that site. And right now, he was at his first show was July 18th, 1972. So here's a quick chat with Barry. All right, joining us now on the Deadology podcast is Mr. Barry Aquilino. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Catfish?
Awesome, man. Doing great.
All
And
righty.
the reason we're gonna have a little chat with Barry here. His first Grateful Dead show is the Immortal, July 18th, 1972, Roosevelt Stadium show. What a way to get started! And before we go to Roosevelt Stadium, could you tell us how you got into the Grateful Dead? How did it all begin?
Okay. Well, um, when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 1970. To put it in perspective, and in high school, I was more of a airplane and Big Brother fan as far as the San Francisco performers went. Um, it wasn't until I guess my freshman year of college. And to back up a bit, um, I had only used weed once in high school, and it didn't work for me.
Oh, so you were a good kid. You were a good boy in high school.
Yes, yes. Well, only due to lack of opportunities. Um, I didn't know any of the bad guys. Where I didn't, I wasn't in their confidence. Let's put it that way. Um, I have an older brother who lived in upstate New York. Um, And my freshman year of college at the University of Buffalo, I had a roommate. I had a friend who lived near Saratoga, which is where my brother lived. And he was going home for the weekend, and I figured I'll go visit my brother. Um, and we talked a bit. Once I got there, I said, I'm not. He was trying to get me to be able to react uh, to weed, and it just wasn't happening. So what he did was he put me in a room by myself with a water pipe, a jug of Almaden wine for people of my generation. That will that was high class wine back then.
Mhm.
uh, Filled up a water pipe with some grass and some hash and some keef, which was very exotic stuff back then, um, and put American Beauty on the turntable, or as we called them back then, record player. Um, One thing that I did get into in high school and early college were the Zap comics, the R. Crumb things, and that keep on trucking um, meme that he had back then. So when the Dead started playing Truckin on the on American Beauty, it resonated with me. Um,
Yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
sure that I'm sure the smoke and the wine had nothing to do with
Yeah.
it.
Hey, that's brotherly love for you, sequestering you with the Grateful Dead and good smokes and good
Yep,
wine.
yep,
Hey, so since yeah, so trucking was a big song for you. They played a hell of a trucking in Roosevelt Stadium that day.
yep,
And you shared your ticket stub with me, $5.50. So you more than
yep,
got your money's worth. Everything you ever could have wanted to see that
yep.
day you saw. Going to Roosevelt Stadium, maybe I was always it's a minor league ballpark. I was curious if you could kind of set the scene of what it was like to be in Roosevelt Stadium that day.
Okay, well, I don't remember how I guess somebody else must have gotten the tickets. Uh, During the summer is when I would get together with my high school buddies who were also home from college for the summer. So one of them must have gotten the tickets, um, and we drove down from Rockland County to Jersey City. And like you said, it's a minor league ballpark. It was already starting. It was really showing its age by then. Um, the stage was set up in the outfield. I imagine it was in center field. Um, I don't remember it being a crappy night weather-wise, so it must have been a nice night. Um, and I was really excited to be there because by then, between the time um, of my encounter at my brother's house and this um, night at the stadium, Skull and Roses had come out, and I got into that in a big way. Um, Big Railroad Blues was like a really big favorite of mine because it had two separate guitar solos. That was unheard of, for any song. But even the Grateful Dead were doing two solos, you know, separated by some vocals.
Yeah, hey,
So,
that must have blown your mind at the Roosevelt Stadium show, man. You heard more instrumentals than you ever could have dreamed of
oh
or
yeah,
imagined. So, hey, at the show that day, what was like the big takeaway impressions? I know, you didn't know all the stuff, you didn't have experience seeing the Grateful Dead before, but what was your big impressionable takeaways from that night?
okay. Well, the disappointment, of course, was that Pigpen wasn't there.
Yeah,
Um, he was already starting to get pretty sick. I guess the European tour took a lot out of him. There was all the rumors floating around that we were going to see people from the Allman Brothers because 2 nights earlier, some guys from the Allman Brothers band showed up at the Dead gig in Connecticut, and the night before, some guys from the Dead showed up at the Allman Brothers gig at Gaelic Park in the Bronx. That didn't pan out either, but it was a solid show. I kind of went in expecting to hear kind of a replay of Skull and Roses, which of course wasn't what the live performances were about. I'd only been to two or three rock concerts before, so I didn't have much to go on that score. They had technical difficulties early on with the
yeah,
piano,
entire first set, yeah.
right? You hear them talking about that on the Miller sourced tape, um, but just being happy to be there and I said, thinking, wow,
Yeah.
after kind of a year or so of really can't being unable to wait to see the Dead, here I am.
Yeah, so I had kind of the same experience in my first show, Madison Square Garden. It's just so overwhelming. You're coming off the albums, and then you see them
Yeah,
live. It's a different language. Even if you have the live albums, you're listening to the live albums. When you step into a concert, it's just taking it to another level.
right.
And I think we talked. You also mentioned something like that really kind of intrigued me. You mentioned something about pyrotechnics during the
Yeah,
show. And
yeah. And this is something, okay, I've never spoken to anybody else who was at that show, but
we're going to
um,
take your word for
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, when the facts get in the way of the legend, print the legend.
Yep.
Uh, and you can't hear this on the, at least not on the Charlie Miller sourced tape of the soundboard. But during Casey Jones, which closed out the first set, they were shooting skyrockets off from I guess from the side of the stage, but no, not on the stage, obviously, but off to the side of the stage on the ground. Um, and it seemed to me, and the way I remember it, or the memory I've created since then, is that they were shooting the skyrockets kind of in time to the music. So while they were singing, driving that train, you would hear whoosh, and as they're singing "High on Cocaine," boom, over and over again.
Wow, it would be amazing if they actually timed it out like that. That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure there's some creative license involved in my recollection, but it makes for a good story.
Yep.
Um, the this was actually this turned out to be the only three set concert I ever went to. Um, they opened the second set with playing in the band, um, and unless I'm confusing the second and third set, but
No,
I
definitely
think
second
not.
set. You're right on.
Oh, I am okay.
Yeah.
Well, during playing in the band, um, it's kind of hard to describe, but it was again off stage, but you know, off to the side of the stage. It was almost like a small billboard that they had set up, and out of nowhere, they just lit up this billboard, and it just lit up letters. Grateful Dead. One of the words was in green letters, one was red. I don't remember which was which, but I don't know if they were sparklers or not Roman candles, but some sort of firework that just kind of lit up this sign off to the side of the stage,
Wow,
and
that's
that was
pretty
pretty
cool.
cool.
Definitely,
Yeah,
man. During playing in the band, that's a home run. So yeah, it's the scoreboard's keeping track, man. They
yeah,
probably yeah, there was a bunch of home runs on that night. He got a great Truckin, great
yeah,
Dark Star. Listening
yeah.
to I know you can't think back to '72. Remember how you took it all in back then, but listening to the tape and years after, what are your favorite moments from the show? What do you like from there?
Um, boy, it's hard to pin. It is hard to pin that down, you know, because there were a lot of you know terrific performances. Um, a lot of songs I wasn't familiar with because Europe '72 hadn't been released yet.
Yeah,
So um, at the time, there was like all this new material that when you go to a concert, you want to hear your favorite songs, and there was all these new songs that were fine, but they weren't my favorites yet.
yeah. Did you
Um,
know Dark Star, or was that just something you came to afterwards?
well, I knew of Dark Star because Live Dead was out by then. I wasn't as interested in the long jammy songs back then. I was more into you know the rather crisp you know rockers like Big Railroad Blues, like Bertha,
Yeah, they
like
opened up with Bertha, correct? Truckin did have that wasn't spacey, but it had a romping, rocking instrumental
yeah,
at the end.
right,
Yeah, so
and
yeah,
and going down the road feeling bad, that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. They ended up with a not fade away, going down the road, not fade away. So you definitely got your money's worth. The 550 for sure. That's like 4 hours of music. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And
and ending with One More Saturday Night,
yeah,
which of course is not never got recorded,
yeah, I forgot
unfortunately.
that. Thanks for mentioning that because it's not on the tapes. On the tapes I've been listening to. So I totally forgot that they did One More Sunday Night for an encore. You only see it on the list; it's not on the recordings.
Yeah.
And last thing here on the Roosevelt Stadium show. So this experience, did it launch you into a life as being a deadhead and going to see more shows? Was that like the igniter for it all?
I think that's a fair statement. I think um, just listening to the records that I had were certainly putting me in that direction. Um, I guess if the concert had really stunk, if I really had an awful time, maybe life would have taken a different direction, but it didn't, so it didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, Amazing. It's like it's your first show to be there for that much music, and obviously you liked it because you stayed.
yeah,
It's a long time to stay at a concert, and definitely a great way to kick off your career. It's an amazing part of American cultural history. That's why we're glad to have you on the Deadology podcast. Someone who was actually at there and can recall some of it at least. And
yeah.
hey Barry, man, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right. Speak
All
to you
right,
later. Peace.
peace.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and reflections on July 18th, 1972. Let's dive into the show. So the Grateful Dead are feeling great, on top of the world after finishing the Europe 72 tour. The shows were a tremendous success, and they got an album ready to put out, which would come out, I think it was early 73. They came out with Europe 72. But man, they were just so psyched to be in Europe, and their performances there are legendary. Just, the Grateful Dead, as good as it gets. And so they're on top of the world. They're back in front of their probably the most, they're obviously California and San Francisco is their main fan base, but probably their rowdiest, the newest fan base was hovered around the New York City area. And here they are in front of about 40,000 in a minor league baseball stadium, Roosevelt Stadium. And just that they are the band's on top of the world, and now they're going to give it to New York City on a beautiful summer night. They open up with Bertha, nice Bertha opener, and then they follow with Me and My Uncle. That was almost a typical 1-2 punch. They did that several times in Europe, and they always performed it well, as they did here in Roosevelt Stadium. The first big number to come from this show is in the third spot. Before they go into it, they mention that Pigpen isn't feeling well. He's at home recovering. And obviously, and unfortunately, Pigpen's last show with the Grateful Dead was a month earlier, June 17th. Nobody knew it at the time, but he would never appear with the Grateful Dead again. And in tune with that, the song they're about to play is a song about Janice, Birdsong. And the big deal about this performance is they hadn't done it in a year. I believe the date is August 24th, 71 was the last time they played it. And this is also their first time doing it with Keith Godchaux on piano. And the great thing about this version, it's obviously an improved, the arrangement is improved, a lot nicer, not a lot nicer sounding, but definitely nicer sounding than the versions from 71. They did a nice improvement on it. And the versions that would come up over the next month, like Veneta and Berkeley Community Theater, they would take it to another level and jam much more on it. But this is a good 9-minute version, and it's just a great celebration because one of their best songs is back, Birdsong. Unfortunately, they didn't play in Europe 72. It would have been great if they played it out there. But it's back, a big feather in the cap of this Roosevelt Stadium show. And then moving along, in the fourth spot, we got Promised Land. Fifth spot, Sugaree. And obviously I can't take a ton of time on every song or we would never get through this podcast. The next big moment in this is the sixth song of the first set, The Black-Throated Wind. And by the way, just the song selection, the way the show flows, it's such a great thing to listen to, man. The band's just, they got it going on. The only problem is, and they mentioned it during the set, there's feedback or some sound distortion coming from Keith's piano and a little crackling going on, and you can hear it on the tape here and there. They fix it for the second set, but it's a little thing as a listener you got to overcome. And I'm not too overbearing, but I'm sure it bothered them as they were playing. Sixth song, Black-Throated Wind. And for me, personally, man, I had a tape back in the day. Can't recall what tape it was. And it was a first set. There was time left over on this 90-minute tape, and there was a Black-Throated Wind there. And it was the coolest Black-Throated Wind. And whenever I hear Black-Throated Wind on another tape or when I started getting CDs, nothing ever matched it. I couldn't wait to find out what that Black-Throated Wind was. And when I finally got the Roosevelt Stadium show, probably sometime in the early 2000s, I was like, that's it. When I heard this show, I was like, that's the Black-Throated Wind I've been listening to. I heard it like hundreds of times. I knew it inside out. And when I heard the Roosevelt Stadium show, I'm like, that's the perfect Black-Throated Wind. Bob Weir's singing is freaking awesome on this. And Jerry's hitting like every note with the right emotion. So when they do I Left St. Louis, City of Blues, Garcia's licks right there, just perfect. And the whole thing's awesome, the way they bring it on home here at the end. And you can even hear a little bit of the crackling of the piano. I mean, this song has it all. And right now, let's take a listen to the end of the Black Throat Wind from Roosevelt Stadium, 7/18/72.
Capture a glance and make it dance. Looking at you, looking at me. Black-throated wind, some pour it in with its words of a lie that could almost be true. Our Mother American night, now here comes the light. Turn it around, that's what I'm gonna do. Yes, I'm going back home, that's what I'm gonna do. Turn it around, that's what I'm gonna do. Well, I'm going back home, that's what I'm gonna do. You done better by me than I've done by you. I'm drowning in you. Well, I'm going back home, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm drowning in you. I'm drowning in you.
On the heels of that awesome Black Throat Wind, the band fires into Cat Rider, and Roosevelt Stadium is in heaven. As I listened, I wanted to dance on the table when I was listening to this Cat Rider, and it's pretty awesome. But the usually very hot segue jam into Rider, it's okay. Nothing to get crazy about. Band rolls forward with another tune that would appear on Europe 72, Jack Straw, and they keep the great flow of songs going. You got a Loser, Beat It Down the Line, and we're getting down to the final three songs of the opening first set. This one is pretty awesome. The third Stella Blue ever played. They did it on June 17th. They played it at the show before in Dillon Stadium in Hartford. And this is the third version of Stella. And it's beautiful, and it's obvious that Jerry is loving these lyrics that Hunter gave him. It all rolls into one. Nothing comes for free. Jerry was just singing his heart out on this beautiful version of Stella, and the song would continue to develop over time. Yeah, so many of the songs they played just kept getting better and better. The Grateful Dead were just in that phase where everything that came into the rotation would just get better as time went on. There was no other way for it to go. El Paso follows Stella Blue, Jerry Pickety Pokety Away, little Bob's Country tune, Marty Robbins, El Paso, and the set ends up with a rousing version of Casey Jones. And as my friend Barry told you, there were skyrockets going off, and man, what a scene that must have been in Roosevelt Stadium over 52 years ago. The band takes a break. They announce that they're going to get the tuning right. Everything's going to be great for the second set. They did a killer first set, but they come out for the second set, and they got a third set in store too. This is just a huge night. So the second set, the thing to keep in mind here as we go into it, one of the best sets the Grateful Dead ever did. It's 7 original Grateful Dead songs, just laid out, some of their best songs. So if you're talking about just a perfect set that should be in, if the Grateful Dead had a Hall of Fame and you just can only put certain sets in, this would be a set in there. Opens up with Playing in the Band, a really hot 14-minute version. Playing in the Band started coming into its own in 1972, but in Europe 72. The versions really were taken off. You got the great one from 4/8/72, London, England, Wembley Pool. Bickershaws, a very hot version. Towards the end in the Lyceum, they did like a 20-minute version of playing. So this thing was just exploding. And also the Beat Club version is great. I think they did 2 play-ins on that night for the video of the Beat Club. So yeah, another great playing in the band here. And not quite as hot as it would be in Veneta a month later. That Veneta playing it's got to be the best. It's like the perfect version. And there's so many great versions towards the end of 72 and into 73. You can't go wrong with playing in the band at all. So playing in the band opens up the second set. And then they got 2 new originals, which are yet to be on the albums. Once again, Brown Eyed Women and Tennessee Jed. They do very cool versions. And it's just so interesting. It's one of the reasons I wanted to speak to Barry, because he was like the prototype person I had in mind who would be at Roosevelt Stadium. You heard an album. You're not a Grateful Dead follower yet. You weren't there in Phil Maurice in 1969. And they're just playing all these songs, which it's so unusual that a crowd would be out there soaking it in, songs they never heard before. And the Grateful Dead, they did the crowd-pleasing stuff, but they were just on an artistic, just charging ahead, full steam ahead. Didn't matter if they were in Europe. It didn't matter if they were in Roosevelt Stadium. This band was on a mission. They were just, they were playing music almost for a future audience. It's like they knew they were playing for a future audience at the time, which obviously that really wasn't on their mind. But man, this stuff could only truly be appreciated by an audience down the future who really knows all these songs. Just so much new stuff for an audience to take in here. And then at this point, the show just totally takes off. The 2 best performances of the night are coming up back to back. Just a huge leap forward. 2 best ever versions, not the best ever, although they could be. They're right up there. Truckin' into Dark Star, and this is the first time these songs were put together. They break into Truckin'. Everybody's psyched. Truckin's, an FM kind of staple at this point. And just the jam that follows is crazy, man. It's just Garcia and the band at their best, but especially Jerry here. I love what he does. Like, he'll do a call and response kind of thing, except the only thing with that is he's doing the responding. So it's like he'll throw out a great lead. He realizes he loves the lead, so it's like he's answering back to himself. It's brilliant. It sounds very simple that a guitarist would play a lead and then respond to his own lead with a call and response type thing, playing almost the same type lead. But hey, Garcia was kind of like a master at that. That's one of the things I love best about his playing, and you don't hear it too much in other guitarists. Maybe it's almost like they're might be afraid to do something like that. But Garcia would find a lick he liked, and then he would just kind of repeat it, but with a slight variation or a little more emphasis, a little less emphasis, and it worked, man. It was Garcia magic, One of the unique stylings that he had. A jazz guitarist that comes to mind who does something like that is Grant Green, where and that's a guy you should check out if you haven't heard too much Grant Green. Great jazz guitarist, but he would fixate on certain licks and just play them over and over, and you never get sick of it. You crave it more as they're repeating the lick. And to hear a little bit of what I'm talking about, I'm going to play a section of this Truckin', about 4 minutes of trucking, and you clearly hear that call and response. And later in the song, Jerry and Keith get a little thing going while they're doing the Truckin'. They come back to the Truckin' chorus. But this is such a great jam here. Enjoy Truckin' from Roosevelt Stadium, 7/18/72.
trucking on back home, down to crash my bones. Get back trucking home, home. Hey, now get back trucking on. Hey, now get back trucking on. Hey, now get back trucking on. Back trucking on. Get back trucking on. Back trucking on. Hey, now get back trucking on.
Grateful Dead providing the oral fireworks on this night in Roosevelt Stadium, Saturday, July 18th, 1972. So the jam rolls on for a bit, and then it goes into this pretty little instrumental, kind of a prelude. And as the sun's setting and the stars are beginning to appear, the Grateful Dead launched Dark Star. Much to the delight of those in the know in Roosevelt Stadium that night. The Dark Stars from Europe, the Dark Star just taken, in my opinion, a huge leap. These 1972 stars starting out in Europe, just otherworldly to me, man. Just unbelievable how good they are. And they continued with the role of Dark Stars here in Roosevelt Stadium. So this version, man, there's 15 minutes till Jerry gets the Dark Star verse, and for me it's like a perfect engaging 15 minutes. Starts off with some real nice ripping. The band changes course a little bit, but not too much. They don't get like very spacey with it. Just very engaging. When I think of this Dark Star, I put it in the same category as the one from London, April 8th on 72, and also October 31st, 71, the one from Dick's Picks, Columbus, Ohio. Just the type of Dark Stars, if you're going to play it for somebody who's not a Grateful Dead fan, this is something, it's just totally engaging. It doesn't get weird at all. It's just great instrumentation for 15 consecutive minutes. A different feel to it. I'm not, saying that it's better than other versions where they go out into Pluto and galaxies beyond. But this is just very engaging. Hard not to be sucked in by how good the band's playing all the way through. And this version from about the 11-minute part till Jerry gets to singing that first verse is probably my favorite portion of any Dark Star. So let's go back to the audio tape and check out some of the hottest jamming you'll ever hear in any Dark Star.
Star crashes, pouring its light into ashes. Green sun tattered, the voices terrors from the ashes. Searchlight casting for faults in the clouds of delusion.
The Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia and Fuego, giving it their all for Roosevelt Stadium and future audiences. So the Dark Star after the verse, it definitely takes a different turn, but still very engaging. It's all kind of mind, out-of-body fusion, Tiger Jam, just shredding, but definitely going to another galaxy. The alien ship is taken off and nobody's in Roosevelt Stadium anymore. Everyone's going to other galaxies with the Grateful Dead as their leaders, as the Dark Star comes to almost short for the time period, but 27 minutes. But it's a fully engaging Dark Star, in my opinion, as good as anyone out there. And the craziness of the Dark Star kind of segues into the compassionate calm of Comes a Time. And Jerry sings his heart out on this one. Very cool version. Most of the versions from 71, 72, this era, don't segue into another song. Just Comes a Time by itself. And when they bring the song back in 76, 77, it actually turns into a great segue tune where they take it to another part of a bigger segment. But on these occasions, it just comes to an end. And then the amazing second set here, they close it out with a Sugar Magnolia. So once again, this is a Grateful Dead original set playing in the band. Brown Eyed Women, Tennessee Jed, Truckin, Dark Star, Comes a Time, Sugar Magnolia. Just a perfect little set, and there's a whole nother set to go. Just being at Roosevelt Stadium, 3 sets over, well, I haven't actually counted it, but I think it's 4 hours of music. Third set gets underway with Ramble on Rose. And once again, unless there's people at this, and I'm sure there are some people at this point following the Grateful Dead around a little, and I've heard Ramble on Rose before. It came out a year earlier. First performance in Minneapolis on October 1971. To most of the people in Roosevelt Stadium, once again, it had to be like a new song. Beautiful version of Ramble on Rose. Keats playing in Ramble on Rose is something to behold. Next song, Greatest Story Ever Told. By the way, for a lot of people, probably almost everyone there, this is their first time seeing Donna. Donna wasn't over the top on this night. She was kind of like definitely like a lower key role for her on this night. Usually she has more of a impact, but definitely a little more laid back Donna on this night. But first times for many people here seeing Donna Gottschall. She played her first show was, I believe, New Year's Eve 71, and then she actually joined the band during the Europe 72 tour. So Greatest Story Ever Told is the next song, and like several songs from this era that came out in 71, at the Capitol Theater, they broke out a bunch of new tunes, and Birdsong was one of them. Greatest Story was another. In 72, they took Greatest Story just to another level. In Europe, it was through the roof. Such a great tune. Another really good version here of Greatest Story Ever Told, hot, but not as good as the best from Europe 72. If you love Greatest Story, I think just give you a quick listing here of the very hot ones. 426, a Germany show. 5-3, Paris. And Bickershaw 5-7. I say those are the 3 best from that tour. Just incredible how this little song, which was was first played in 71 at the Capitol Theater, just became this huge instrumental. Only only like a 6-minute song, but just they pack such punch in it. So Ramble on Rose, Greatest Story. And then, ladies and gentlemen, here is Mississippi Half Step, Uptown, Toodaloo. The second ever version, they broke it out 2 nights before in Dillon Stadium. Very cool, a little raggedy compared to what it would be. And, obviously they're just breaking it in here, but it's obvious the potential of the song, how cool it is. Band's totally into it. And it would take a couple months till they really got the song together. There's an excellent version in the Philly Spectrum, September 21st. I think that's when the song really started taking off. And obviously Half Step became another huge anthem along with Stella Blue that it would end up on their next album, Wake of the Flood. And then after Half Step, they break a long string here of originals, and they go with a Merle Haggard song, perhaps his greatest song. Merle had so many awesome songs, but just from songwriting and emotional standpoint, there's nothing like Sing Me Back Home. And Jerry sings it great here, great backing vocals from Donna. And Singing Back Home would only have about another year left in the rotation, maybe 7 to 10 more performances. The Grateful Dead were breaking in so much new material. You got The Stellar, you got Eyes of the World, just tons of songs coming into the rotation. Singing Me Back Home had its little time, its little shining moment in the sun, and it was definitely a trademark, great ballad, Jerry ballad from '72. And then after coming out of the, almost very contemplative, emotional ballad, Sing Me Back Home, the band just rocks the socks off of Roosevelt Stadium, Jersey City, one more time. Jersey City was about 8 miles from Manhattan. I guess it's possible people could have even seen Manhattan from Roosevelt Stadium right across the river. But they totally rocked out here at the end. Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road, Not Fade Away. And this is one combination people were probably familiar with from the Skulls and Roses album. And that ended the third set, just a great set after what went down in set 2. An enormous night of music. And as we discussed earlier in the show with Barry, they did play One More Saturday Night for an encore. I would have totally forgot about that because it's not on any tapes. But as if they hadn't done enough already, they come out for One More Saturday Night. And that's it. One of the great shows, huge shows in Grateful Dead history. July 18th, 72, Roosevelt Stadium. And that wraps up this episode 5 of Season 2 of the Deadology Podcast. Next month, huge month, we got Jerry Garcia Band on tap. It's Jerry Garcia Band month, February. And the first show I'm going to do is the one I rated the best ever in my book, Positively Garcia, Reflections of the JGB. An early Jerry show from 1972, Pacific High Studio, February 6, 1972. And I think I'll even be recording it on the date or on the anniversary or a day before. But excited for that month. My books are available, www.tangledupintunes or Amazon. And also the Deadology Podcast. If you want to join the Deadology Podcast group and discuss podcasts, any Grateful Dead related material, just look it up, Deadology Podcast. I'll let you come into the group. There's no weird questionnaire or anything. If you like the Grateful Dead, a good place to go. We'll carry on and discuss all matters Jerry and the boys. So once again, thanks for listening. Until we meet again, peace out.